Another thing that makes this poem very difficult is that I think, and you'll have to read the whole poem to see if you agree with me or not, but I think Góngora was doing something like creating cubism in language. Language, you know, is doomed to linear narrative. Language is not like music. In music, you can sound 3, 4, 10 notes at the same time and create a vertical statement as well as a linear statement. Góngora was not willing to accept that. And so the poem is filled with parenthetical phrases that are not in parentheses, but between dashes in the lines. Those are the commentary on the action of the poem. Those are the effort to create simultaneity in language, just as a Cubist painter presents an object from multiple perspectives simultaneously. So if you read a line and mentally pull the parenthetical phrase out of the line, you're dealing with a fairly straightforward narrative. What makes the poem mind-bogglingly difficult is if you don't pull those parenthetical phrases out. So, there's one final point that I think helps to explain his modernism. I think Góngora carried the Petrarchan image of the poem to an extreme, and what he has cut out of the poem is emotion. This is when he is writing a poem that takes place in the countryside, which is the real meaning of the Soledades. It's not really solitude, but the poem has been called that for so long, I didn't want to change the title. But nature and the natural landscape is not the background for a spiritual meditation. It's not the background for a love poem. It is a background to nothing. It is a poem about itself. It is a poem that relishes the objects of the world and writes about them as beautifully as it can. So I think I'm running out of time, but what I wanted to do was read you the opening of the poem and explain it, try to explain some of what I was talking about. I suppose since I went to Penn too, I ought to give you a little historical background. He intended to write 4 cantos, and he wrote one complete one and almost completed the second. So the poem does not match his original conception. All right, I'm going to read you the footnote first. My footnotes come mostly from Damaso Alonso, that wonderful scholar. But I need to read you the footnote, not to put you to sleep, but because I don't think you'll get into the lines without the information. Jupiter, in the form of a bull, abducted and violated Europa. Taurus, the bull, is the sign of spring, April 21st to May 21st, the flowering season. All right? That will explain the opening lines of the poem, I hope. Ganymede of Ida was Jupiter's cupbearer. Jupiter was a equal opportunity rapist. He liked to take the form of an animal and then deal with human women or nymphs, and he also liked to surround himself with beautiful boys. And Ganymede was one of the most beautiful of the boys, and he was the cupbearer. He brought the wine to Jupiter when he ate. Okay, the final one has to do with a man named Arion, A-R-I-O-N. The crew of the ship carrying the musician Arion from Italy to Corinth wanted to throw him overboard and take his money. You see, the more it changes, the more it stays the same. He asked that they allow him to sing first. Dolphins gathered at the sound, and Arion escaped the sailors by plunging into the sea. He was rescued by a dolphin that carried him to land on its back. All right, so you have the three. You have Taurus the bull, you have Ganymede, and you have Arion, who was saved by a dolphin. It was the flowering season of the year when Europa's false-hearted abductor, a half-moon, the weapons on his brow, the sun's rays, all the strands of his hair, O bright glory of heaven, grazes on stars in fields of sapphire blue. When one who could pour the wine for Jupiter better than the comely lad of Ida, a shipwrecked youth, one scorned and desolate, weeps sweet complaints of love to the sea. Taking pity for the waves and for the wind, it made of his abject tears a second sweet instrument of Arion. All right, that's the opening stanza. And my last bit will be to tell you which are the parenthetical phrases. Okay? All right, it was the flowering season of the year when Europa's false-hearted abductor, dash, a half-moon, the weapons on his brow, the sun's rays, all the strands of his hair, O bright glory of heaven. So it would read, the false-hearted abductor, O bright glory of heaven, grazes on stars in fields of sapphire blue. And if you don't think that's a gorgeous image, I'm not sure what you think is beautiful. The next interpolated line is after he says, someone who could pour the wine for Jupiter better than the comely lad of Ida, dash, a shipwrecked youth, one scorned and desolate. So, one who could pour the wine for Jupiter better than the comely lad of Ida, weeps sweet complaints of love to the sea. So do you see how the parenthetical phrases work? They interfere with the straight narration, and if you mentally remove them, then the narrative becomes fairly clear. And this is dealing with the experiences of a young man who has failed in love, is heartbroken, and has been shipwrecked. And the rest of the poem deals with the peasants and the fishermen whom he encounters away from the city.